Hello everyone and welcome along to a TII podcast with a bit of a difference because we're live on a Thursday night. Given the Rangers fixture schedule this December, we can't leave too long in between podcasts. And joining me tonight to look back over what was in the end a very positive result at Tyncastle last night, and then look ahead towards Dundee at the weekend, we have Ross Chalmers. How you doing, Ross?
I'm very well, Craig. Yeah, thanks. It's been a busy week, but yeah, of course, seeing Rangers win last night makes it all the better. So, yep, I'm all good.
Yeah, Ian was ranting and raving in the group chat all the way through that game last night, but he seemed a lot calmer tonight, and I'm sure he'll give us all of his opinions. How you doing, Ian?
Yeah, just about calmed down at this point, mate. So, yeah, good to go.
Excellent. So, as I say, we won't go through the game forensically. Everyone's watched the highlights. Everyone's watched the game live. We'll talk about some of the kind of bigger talking points and look at the bigger picture as to what they mean for Rangers going forward, even as short term as this weekend. We'll then look at potentially some of the areas that need improvement. I think we've all spoken about missed chances today. We've all spoken about injuries, and we've all spoken about the fact we need a striker in January. So all of that will be covered in this podcast. But before we get into that, Ross, come to you first of all. Kind of 24 hours on from the game, how do you feel about it? Are you calmer now about it and happier than you were sort of during the game?
I think it's one of those games, Craig, where it should have been out of sight in the first 45, 50 minutes. You know, I think overall, Rangers could have definitely played better. I think they made the game way more open than I would have wanted to be at Tynecastle. I think Hearts are always going to play for a kind of game like that, but it's all about kind of transitional moments, and we kind of fed into that. I actually thought both teams in the first half, passing-wise, were a joke. Like, really, really poor, both teams. So it wouldn't be a great advert for anyone, you know, watching down south, watching that on Sky Sports last night to see a Scottish game. Certainly wouldn't be. But yeah, I think watching it back today, I think we certainly created really, really good chances last night, which is something that Philippe Clement will be wanting. Ultimately, he wanted strikers to take them, and I'm sure we'll get into that. But it's all about creating those chances, and you're hoping you take them. So overall, I think it's a really positive night for Rangers, to be honest with you. Maybe not the performance, but going away to Tynecastle and winning is always a great result. You know, Hearts are always up for it there. The home crowd are always behind them, and they do have some decent players in there at the moment. It's not the best Hearts team I've ever seen. But, you know, Rangers coming away with a 1-0 victory, that is one of those fixtures on the list you always look at and go, oh, I'm not sure about that one. So the fact we've been able to go through Edinburgh, got a pretty good record there lately and managed to get the 3 points, I'll take it.
Yeah, Ian, as Ross says, we've got a pretty good record at Tynecastle recently. We actually seem to struggle more at Ibrox against them than we do at Tynecastle, which is a bit weird given over the years it tended to be one of the tougher places to go. I don't think Hearts are the best team that they've had for a number of seasons. I think they're struggling a wee bit, even though they kind of won all their games in the last month or so. I wasn't really overly impressed by them, but I thought we actually defended well as well. What do you make of the performance overall?
Yeah, it's a weird. I was saying to you before, as you said, I was ranting and raving the full game, pretty much raging and knowing that impending sucker punch was coming. But when you step back, and as Ross says, you watch the game back, it's a good overall performance. I think at the time I kind of didn't think of it individually, but when you do, the centre-backs were solid. Lundstrom I thought was good. McCausland was good. Sima gets his goal. Tav makes the goals. There's a lot of positives within the team. But like I say, if we take those chances and win 3-4-0, we're all much happier this morning, much happier last night kind of thing. As Ross touched on, the game, quality-wise, was shocking. The amount of times the ball was turned over, lumped up the pitch, lost the ball. I know Lawrence played 15 minutes, but he must have lost the ball 4 times in that time, just lumping it over the top. It was a bizarre setup. It was a strange play, and just the full game. And again, I think this was in our group chat. We're just crying out for a Stephen Davis type player just to sit, put his foot in the ball, and just chill everyone out. It sounds so simple, but a guy that can just make a short pass, keep the ball, rotate the play a little bit. That's like the priority for me in January there. But yeah, 3 points, always welcome, so we'll take it.
Ross, Ian's described it as lumping the ball up the park. It did seem as though Rangers were a lot more direct last night than they have been. I think the first 20 minutes, it was kind of obvious that was going to be our game plan, effectively get the ball to the wide forwards as quickly as we can and try and use their pace, because Hearts are going to push out a little bit. First 20 minutes or so, all of them seemed to go out the park, every single pass. We were all looking for that Goldson to Aribo special, and it never quite arrived. But it was interesting that seemed to be the tactic that we chose. It's not one that I've necessarily seen as employed too much since Clement's come in. Was it one that you expected to see?
I don't think it's a game plan I expected to see, but once I had seen Rangers set up that way, it didn't really surprise me. We done very similar at home to Sparta Prague, if you remember. We were kind of sucking them in and letting them press us, and we were hitting it along to Sima, and we were getting a lot of joy. It looks like Philippe Clement, I think I've said this before, he really values that asset in Abdallah Sima, that he can compete for aerial duels, and he's going to win the majority of them. He's so good physically that he clearly thinks that's an outlet for us. Of course, we used to have it with Connor Goldson over to Ryan Kent. Slightly different. The ball used to go wider. He would bring it down, drive it as man. But Abdallah Sima is just so physical. He just attaches himself to the fullback and he's going to win it. So I don't think it's a bad approach from Rangers. If ultimately do what you need to do to win the game, if you think Hearts are going to come out flying in the first 15, 20 minutes, then don't let them do that. Go over the top of it, play for second balls. There's not one way to play football. Something I would say as well is, I don't think we've been particularly good at building out for the back for about 2 or 3 years now. I don't really think that's a surprise. I know we've seen that goal yesterday, which, by the way, it sounds ridiculous me saying that when we scored such a good goal, right? Because it was building out from the back. But overall, I just don't think we're set up to play like that. When we did have a Stephen Davis that Ian's talking about, where we are more comfortable in the centre-backs playing it into midfield, you had someone that can take the ball in the half-turn, look forward, spray a pass. We don't have that at the moment. So it seems to be that we force it out wide, and it's very much you're looking for a wee bit of creativity from Tavernier to play a 1-2 like he done last night to get out. So overall, the game plan didn't really surprise me. And to be honest with you, I'm fine with going away to a venue like Tyncastle in the first 20 minutes and going, don't let them press us. Don't let them get any sort of momentum in this game. Let's just go over the top of them. We have physicality up front. We have a lot of pace around Sima, in terms of Danilo, in terms of Sima, Todd Cantwell, you've got McCausland as well. Let's just play our second balls and try and settle the game down. Ultimately, that didn't happen, right? The game didn't settle down. It seemed to get worse. But I can understand the game plan. I'm fine with it. I think we all heard this about Philippe Clement before he came in, didn't we? We all heard that he wasn't necessarily a manager that was going to come in and he was going to play a certain way. It was more about what he had. He was going to adjust it. And that would be what you would see from game to game. I think that's what we're seeing. We're seeing different Rangers performances every game. And ultimately, see if we keep winning and we're unbeaten. I'm fine with that, Craig. Go long. I'm cool with it.
Yeah, you're completely agreeing with Cubby Cubstar. Big Phil, 11 games in at the club, 1-8 and drawn 3, no losses. Philippe Clement has inherited a shambles and still managing to produce results. Can't wait to see a rebuilt Philippe Clement team. Sadly, it won't happen quickly. Ian, playing the long ball isn't necessarily the most attractive style of football, but if it gets results, it gets results, I guess is what Ross is saying. Is that the view that you have as well? And how important or how interesting do you think it is that Philippe Clement has pretty much, as soon as he's come in, he's realised that we need to put a lot of focus on pace in the team, especially in those forward areas, in a way that Michael Beale actually stripped all the pace out of the team. It's an interesting contrast, isn't it?
It's one we were crying out for, I think, in terms of going to games and just seeing that like slow, lazy, passive play constantly. So there's a fine balance, I think, to be found. Like, you don't want to just lump the ball at the park constantly, but when you've got someone with Goldson's passing, I think Suter could sort of tick that box as well. Maybe a bit more short range passing compared to Goldson, but you've got the tool there. Why not try and exploit it? Ideally, we'd have someone on the sort of right side cutting in, doing that same kind of job, but I think this is a lot. Like, you see a lot of comments just now about Sima should be like the striker and the number 9, but I feel like that would take away a lot of what we're trying to do just now. You know, his strength and power and just raw ability to come inside and make that run. We probably don't make that goal last night if he starts as the central forward. So it makes a lot of sense what we're doing, why we're doing it. And as Ross says, if it gets wins, if it gets goals, we'll make it continue. I mean, the fact is that we scored from sort of a good, well-worked play, but the 2, 3, 4 good chances that I can think of came from the long ball. Sima was then breaking through and the Hearts defence just couldn't cope with it. And as you touched on, that's like the form side in the league, I think, at the time. I think they won every game in November. So if a team like Hearts, who I think, again, had the second best defensive record in the league at this point, if they can't cope with it, then 90% of the league isn't going to either. So all good.
Yeah, Ross, I'm going to throw a hypothetical your way. Obviously, we're talking about pace. Fashion Sakala still in this team. How well's he doing?
Well, I think he would play in a very similar position to Abdallah Sima, so you'd hope they would do pretty well. I think there was points I think we tried to play Sakala through the middle, and it kind of comes back to that Sima conversation that it's just not. I think you're going to lose a lot from playing Sima through the middle. I think he's clearly got some of the attributes you would want, but when you are playing as the lone number 9, you're seeing it with Danilo. He peels off quite a lot. It's all about there's more of your back to goal and things like that. That's just not Sima's skill set. He can do it. He's got to do that on the left-hand side. But I think last night you've seen that Danilo pulling into space. It's actually really, really, other than the build-up, right? The build-up itself to get to that position is really good. But Abdallah Sima and Danilo's understanding there, the movement's really good. Danilo understands that him dropping in, he's going to pull a player with him. Not necessarily he's going to get the ball. He knows Tavernier's not going to play a short ball there, and Sima recognises that straight away, and he's in behind. So, of course, it comes from a central position, so people are going to look at it and go, oh, we should play him through the middle. But, of course, it's all about your movement. He's coming off the left-hand side. So, yeah, just to touch on Ian's point there, yeah, I don't think I would be playing Sima through the middle either. But, yeah, Fashion Sakala, I did not expect this sort of hypothetical question, Craig, I'll be honest with you. I think he would still do pretty well in this Rangers team under Philippe Clement. That doesn't mean we were wrong to sell him. The money we got for Fashion Sakala was very good in terms of bringing him in a free and selling him for 4 million. That's really good business. But I think similar players to Abdallah Sima, I think I would probably give Abdallah Sima the edge in that one. I think he looks a more of a rounded player. But in terms of what they give to this Rangers team, very similar. So I could see him thriving in this Clement system.
Yeah, Ian, I'm going to say Philippe Sima, Abdallah Sima. Abdallah Sima, Ross has mentioned the fact he's got that aerial threat, he's got that power about him, and he's got the pace. I think it's all attributes that we are desperate for at Rangers. But when he first started this season, he looked like he couldn't put one foot in front of the other, and he was falling over the ball and all sorts, and we were all calling him the next Fashion Sakala, I think, pretty much until he scored that goal against PSV. How impressed have you been, firstly, with his turnaround since since he started here at Rangers, and then how composed his finishing has become as well? We saw it the weekend against St Mirren, especially with his second goal when he's through one-on-one and he's sent the keeper the wrong way and put it bang in the bottom corner. And then last night again, no panic whatsoever, just slotted it underneath Zander Clark. It's really impressive from Abdallah Sima, but it wasn't what I expected when I saw him the first couple of games he was here.
No, it was a very tough watch the first few weeks. I think it kind of goes to show, but you do need to give players that like bedding in time to get to know their teammates, get to know the style of play we're going for, get to know Ibrox, just basics like that. But at this point, if I'm wanting any striker, any player of ours to be through on goal, he's the one I'm most confident in scoring. His return rate is ridiculous at this point. I'm sure I've seen it's between him and Tav, that's 47% of our goals this season. Like, that is insane for a winger, basically. A guy is starting off at the left, the guys have to shoot at left wing back a couple of games now and then. So, all for it. The only worry for me is how good he's doing, because it's well known he's got a year left in this contract. Brighton, I don't think he's quite that level, as I would say, but there'll be a lot of teams sniffing about him if he's available. So if we could tie that one down permanently sooner rather than later, I'd be buzzing with that.
Yeah, Ross, I think Abdallah Sima has surprised us all. We've sat beside each other in the gantry and stuff like that and been just spoken about how important a player he is for us. Is he a player? We've heard rumours, obviously, that Rangers are really interested in taking him permanently. It'll be interesting to see how that lands, because I think what the fee that we imagine he would have to be spent on him is much larger than we would anticipate Rangers are paying for a player. Is he just someone you would want to see arrive permanently? What's the kind of max figure you would expect to see us pay for him? Is it one that you think could happen?
Before I answer that, right, I just want to reiterate, I called this one in August, right? Just because we've sat next to each other in the gantry, and I sent a tweet out in August saying that he was going to be a very important player for Rangers. So I'll bring that up, right, for a podcast, and I'll show everyone. So I'm going to take some credit for this one. No, I'm just joking. Abdallah Sima, obviously, right, it'd be a player that I'd love us to sign permanently. I think I spoke about this maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago on the podcast, that I think it's probably unrealistic with the way he's playing, because Ian makes a good point there in terms of you're obviously wanting a loan player to thrive when they're here and get the most out of them. ultimately they're not your player. So if they do well here, it's going to be more difficult for you to get them on a permanent basis. And Brighton we all know how good they are when it comes to the transfer market, right? I don't think they're going to do Rangers any favours. I don't think they're going to go, oh, well, he's only got a year left. We'll give you him for 5 million. I can't see that happening. What I think could happen, I think there's the most realistic option for Rangers is Brighton will probably approach him and his agent and give him a new ridiculous contract that we can't compete with. And they'll say, stay here, stay in our development path for you. We'll put you back to Rangers for another year so you can enjoy your football, and then we'll reassess it after, because Brighton can afford to probably up his wages to 30, 40 grand a week and not really worry about it. They'll take that risk. We can't do that, right? So that's what I think is the most likely outcome, which I don't think is the end of the world, really. If you're still going to get a player of Abdallah Sima's quality coming back and helping us and potentially, taking us on to win trophies, does it really matter if he signs in a permanent? Not every player has to be permanent. So anything we can do to get the player back next season, Craig, yeah, for me, permanently, I'm not sure, regardless whether we've all heard the rumours that Rangers representatives are speaking to Brighton often about this one. That's fine. They can ask all the questions, but I'm just not sure they're going to get the answer they want. So yeah, anything they can do to bring the player back, that's fine with me. I'm just not sure it's going to be permanent.
Ian, what's your kind of same question to you? What do you see as Abdallah Sima's future at Rangers? Do you think we will try and sign him permanently? And I think there's some comments in there saying Brighton paid 7 million for him, Brighton paid 9 million for him. So if you're looking at that £7 to £9 million mark, are we getting even close to that, do you think, if we try and sign him permanently?
I can see him joining permanently, to be honest. I think I'm more on that side that he will, but I think if he does, it's going to come with a lot of caveats from Brighton's side, like selling on fees, percentage of next sales, add-ons, etc., etc. So the better he does for us, and the better we would then sell him on for, Brighton would then sort of cash in as well, kind of thing. So I think that's a bit of a win-win for everybody as well. I know the loan option, if he gets a new deal, same idea. Like Ross says, I'd be quite happy with that. Again, if he came here and done amazing, and then we sold him after a year, we'd only have a year out of him. So there's a few wee things in there to take in as well. But I don't know about fees for us, because it's so hard to gauge right now, because I think there's so much we need to do selling wise. It just depends how much we can get back on a Lammers, a Dessers, guys like that. If we can get anything, which then might dictate how much we can spend on the other side and stuff like that. So I don't see us spending 8 million plus on a single player. Sadly, I just don't think that's a market we're kind of anywhere close to right now. I think the 5-6 millions are max. And then if we got Sima for that kind of money, you're then talking add-ons and stuff. So there's a lot of different things in there. But I mean, he has just had a child here. His child is now Scottish, so maybe that's a wee tie we can cling on to. There's wins here. But it just depends. But he's never had settled first team football, as far as I can think, through his career. I know he played a little bit in France before he then went on to Prague or wherever he went, but I don't think he's probably enjoyed his football as much as he's enjoying it right now, I would guess. So I imagine he'd want to stay, and then if he wants to stay, he might not want to sign a new deal, and then that plays into our hands a little bit. So there's a lot of sort of to and fro that's going to come surely, but a long wait till we have anything confirmed, I'm sure.
Yeah, Craig, that is a good point there for me, and in terms of Sima could probably have more of an impact on this than we think. If he does only have a year left, if he digs his heels in and said, well, that's fine, cool, well, I've only got a year left, but I don't want to stay there, I'm not extending my contract, it might push Brighton to do a deal with us. I still agree with Ian that it would probably be a pretty expensive deal for us, a lot of add-ons, sell-ons, whatever. Sometimes we're going to have to make deals like that, right? That's just the way of it. But that's the difference between Abdallah Sima really enjoying his time here and wanting to stay and potentially pushing for that move. You look at last season with Malik Tillman, he didn't want to be here. He didn't want to stay. Yeah. So it was an easy decision for Tillman to move on. He might have loved Rangers, but he just didn't see his future here. So I'm hoping that Sima's going to be slightly different. He can probably, with how well he's done, he can probably see himself going to another level here. He gets to fly in Scottish football, and then he gets to play on the European stage, which he wasn't doing, obviously, the last couple of years. So yeah, maybe Sima can dig his heels in a wee bit there and we can get him permanently. That's me being really hopeful there.
Yeah, we need to be careful. Ian's just outed himself as a stalker of Abdallah Sima's wife. So,
or he's been listening to Philip Clement too much when he's talking about baby booms and that. He's been taking that on too much. Yeah.
We've got a sweep on the go as to who's going to have the next baby in the Rangers team after all of that. So the Abdallah Sima one will be interesting. It'll be not sure if he'll sign permanently or not, but I think he would be a welcome signing, given his form so far anyway, even though he did have a wee dip. He's not been consistent the whole way through, but he had a wee dip. But he seems to be coming out of the other side of that, and I don't think he's lost his confidence at any point in that either. Plenty of our players have lost their confidence in front of goal. I think it's fair to say. There was countless missed chances. Michael Beale would have been absolutely delighted with the number of shots we had at goal last night. It doesn't matter how many of them are on target. He'd been absolutely delighted. But we actually, I think you mentioned it at the start, Ross. I think around we are creating chances. We're creating good chances. We're just not finishing them. Is that a case for you? Do you think, Ross, that if you're creating the chances, eventually you're just it's going to click at some point, and we'll have a run of games where we just batter teams left, right, and centre? Or do you think actually it's a real concern that we're not finishing these chances, and you can create them as much as you want, but you actually need to finish them to if we're going to have any sort of positive league challenge?
I'm actually not too concerned, to be honest with you, Craig, because I've seen a lot of Rangers teams before in the past couple of years really not create decent chances. I think we had a lot of that under Michael Beale, where you came out after games, you just felt the team had nothing today. They had no, real initiative in the game. They didn't try to create anything. I don't feel that with this team. I understand that we're really talking about Danilo here, right? Danilo's had 2 sitters last night. I mean, the second one's a really, really good block. The first one, he's got to finish, right?
Are you giving that as a good block, or are you just saying he's got half the goal to hit that's empty? You should really just pass it in.
I mean, look, if you say your striker's got to score, then he's got to score. But I'm going to give some credit to the Hearts defender. I don't know if it was Frankie Kent. I'm not sure, but they made a good block, right? So I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt in that second one. The first one, no brainer. I mean, I think that one for me is he's just lacking a little bit of confidence again, Danilo. He's just, the balls came over, just put your foot through that. You're on the 6-yard box, just put your foot through that. Don't let the goalkeeper set. It's something you always hear about with strikers when they're coming up, developing. It's like, if you've got an opportunity to hit that ball first time, hit it. Don't let the keeper set. Don't let him close an angle. Of course, you can't really close an angle that close to the goal, right? But you know what I mean? It gave Xander Clark a chance, and ultimately he's ended up making the save. So I'm still not really worried. I've seen enough from Danilo that gives me confidence he will start finding goals, and I'm probably using a little bit of Alfredo Morelos in this, right? Because I think we can all say that Alfredo Morelos, through the years playing for Rangers, he wasn't a very good finisher, right? He really wasn't. The amount of chances Alfredo Morelos missed for us was ridiculous. Now, he still ended up being, our European top goal scorer. He scored an abundance of goals for Rangers. So I'm not really worried. I think Danilo will get enough goals for us in the league to make an impact, or in domestic competition or whatever. I think it will come. I think he's just lacking a little bit of confidence. The problem we've got at the moment is you've not got someone else to come in and take it off him. You've not got a Cyril Dessers to come in. He's not exactly flying himself to go, okay, it's not your day today, bad day at the office, we're going to bring someone else in, see if you can get the goal. We don't have that, which is something that I think you do need in your team sometimes. It's not going to work for every player, every game. Do you have options off the bench to make a difference? Kemar Roof is probably the player we would look at over the last couple of years as being that kind of difference maker. He could come on, sniff a goal out of something, but again, you can't rely on him. So I think that, I wouldn't say I'm concerned, Craig. I think if you are creating these chances, I think eventually you're going to start taking them, right, with the quality we've got in our team. And I think, to be honest, we're winning. We're unbeaten under Philippe Clement. I can't be too concerned, especially where we've been this season under the previous manager. So I'm trying to stay positive at this point. I'm hoping Danilo will just start firing again, because, like you said, I think we've seen enough from him overall. I think we've just had certain points in the last couple of weeks where you can just see he's lacking a little bit of confidence. There was that one at St Mirren at home at the weekend where it's great play from Ross McCausland, and he plays it into Todd Cantwell, who flicks it back to Danilo. And for me, my striker there, I'm wanting you to take a touch and I'm wanting you to strike that goal, and he tries to play it back to Cantwell. That's someone I just think is just lacking a little bit, and hopefully that just comes with a bit of time again, and I'm sure he'll start firing them in.
Yeah, Ian Ross has been quite positive there in terms of Danilo, his movement. It's not that much of a surprise that Ross has been positive. He is sometimes. Ross has been quite positive there around Danilo. Some of the comments are not so positive. RFC72 says Danilo for 6 million is failing to impress. Needs to get the figure out before the crowd starts to turn on him like Glamours and Dessers. Kyle1872 then says, agree, RFC72. Danilo pound for pound is failing. I wouldn't agree with those. Where do you stand?
Yeah, I think they're pretty harsh, to be fair. He's not at the Dessers level, so let's eliminate that theory straight away. I think, as Ross says, he's just struggling for confidence a bit. He's overthinking it a bit for me. I mean, as Ross says, that one last night, just hammer it home. It's right there. You don't need to take, like, McCoist wouldn't have took a touch. Chris Boyd wouldn't have took a touch. Just put it in the back of the net. And I think he just needs one to go in for him, kind of thing. I mean, the block, you could say, was unlucky. There's a still that John Walker...
I'm not having that unlucky. I'm not
saying it wasn't. There's a still image that John put on Twitter this morning, and you can see like 60% of the goal is just totally free there. So I think we're being very generous even bringing up the word block in that. So
if Connor Goldson makes that block, do you say it's a great block?
Yeah. I don't know. I suppose James Tavernier made quite a similar block, didn't he? The first half. So, I
think both can be true, can't they? Both can be true. So,
yeah.
As I say, I think he just needs one to kind of hit off him and go in. Just a tap in, goes in kind of thing, and then I can see him going on a good run. I mean, he's had a tough time since he came here. He broke his face at one point, so we need to kind of put things in perspective a bit. He's a lot going on. He's finally got going. Good bit of fitness behind him. It just takes a goal or two and then we'll all love him again. I mean, after the Hearts game in the semi-final, his name was getting sang by like 25,000 people, loudest I've heard it for a while. So it seems like quite a lot of people have turned very suddenly on him, which I'm not really all for, but he'll score a goal or two the weekend, I'm sure, and then we'll be back on the good vibes from him.
I think we're just in desperate need for a striker that's going to consistently score goals. It's not something that we have had for a wee while. Even when Alfredo Morelos was there for the last couple of seasons, he wasn't doing it. He wasn't finding the back of the net often enough to hang your hat on the fact he would score every game, and we're in desperate need for that because I think it was you, Ian, that said that 47% of our goals so far this season have come from James Tavernier or Abdallah Sima, and that says a lot, and I don't think in a good way. I think it says a lot in quite a bad way, actually, in terms of the contributions that are coming from other areas of the park. How concerning is it, Ian? I'll stick with you because Ross has kind of answered the finishing question. So how concerned are you that actually there's people elsewhere in the team aren't contributing a great deal, so it doesn't really matter who's on the park, the level of finishing kind of stays level and not in a good way?
Yeah, I think it would be more concerning if we didn't have like the high XG numbers, if we didn't have the high chance creation, stuff like that. I mean, that was the Beale games we were going to. You know, we'd scrape a 1-0, we'd get a 2-1 from like a moment of genius kind of thing, rather than missing like 5, 6, 7 great chances. But I guess the concern for me is that we've missed all those chances yesterday, and it's not as if Zander Clark had a good game. I mean, he fumbled 2 or 3. You could see he was kind of, just as I say, not having a great game. I don't think he's a great keeper at the best of times, to be honest, but it'd be a different story if we miss all these chances and you say, oh, goalie's played a blinder there. I'm sure there was that St Mirren game earlier in the season where their keeper was just phenomenal for that day. So you will get games like that, but again, try and keep it positive. If we weren't making chances, that's a bigger worry for me, but it'll come. It's a very cliche thing to say, but a team will get a doing off us at some point. It's going to happen. If it happens the 30th this month, then so be it. But it's going to happen. So let's just win games. As long as we win, I don't really care.
We can all hope for it on the 30th of this month. But Ross, I think a striker is pretty much going to be a certainty on the shopping list for January. At this stage, it was interesting just seeing folk come on and interact with Lawrence Shankland after the game last night. It's kind of fueled the rumours further, I guess, in terms of the potential interest that we may have. Yeah, absolutely stirred the pot. But he's mentioned him a few times in press conferences. You think he's made that a secret that he's a fan of Lawrence Shankland, even during his short time in Scotland. Where do you stand on the fact that we need a striker despite spending 12 million quid on 3 forward players? It's kind of shows where our recruitment has been. There's I think the club and John Bennett kind of outlined how annoyed and frustrated they were at the AGM about that. The fact that they have split Ross Wilson's role into two, with one that's particularly focused on recruitment. And obviously, I don't know if anyone's, I think everyone's probably seen the scenes from Brazil after Santos got relegated last night, but that means that Alfredo Morelos is now available on a free transfer, and I've seen a lot of people saying that they would bring him back. For me, I completely agree with Blue Bells or Blue, who's just put in that people are saying bring him back. For me, no chance. Absolutely, I would not bring Alfredo Morelos back, but it does seem that we will be in the market for a striker come January. So any names that you're like, that you think? Miovski was another one that's mentioned, although he seems to be more of interest to the other side of the city now. Where do you stand? It just feels like we need a natural finisher. It's what we're missing.
I don't know. I'm not completely convinced we'll go for a striker in January, and I think okay, there's a better way of putting this. I'm not convinced we'll go for a permanent signing of a striker. Could I see Rangers potentially making some loan moves in January? Yeah, I can. That could be in numerous positions, so a striker falls under that. I know Dessers hasn't been playing well, right? And I'm not going to.
You're going to go with this, but I think you're going to go with this.
Nah, I'm not going to say that Dessers is the answer, right? But I just personally think Danilo will come onto a game eventually, right? So that need for a striker goes, I think, in my opinion, because he's going to play the majority of the games, right? So you might not have someone firing coming off the bench, but will Rangers look at it and go, we spent like nearly 10 million on the two of these boys. We're probably going to have to see this through till the end of the season. Maybe they go for a loan. Maybe they go for a loan player from down south to try and bring in some competition. Maybe someone that's known for just being a goal scorer. I'm not sure. I can't see us getting Lawrence Shankland. I could maybe see it in the summer because he's got 1 year left in his deal. And Hearts will look at that in terms of, well, hopefully they will, from their perspective, hopefully they're going to get European competition with Lawrence Shankland. So they might look at it and go, well, you've delivered that for us. You've only got a year left. We'll sell you on now. So I could potentially see Rangers coming in at that point. They're not going to give us Lawrence Shankland in January, in my opinion, because they're going to want silly money, right? I reckon Rangers would maybe pay 1.5 to 2 million for Lawrence Shankland tops. I think Hearts would want, I think they'd be wanting 3 to 4 million for him in January just because of their season and what they're playing for. So I can't see that one happening. And if we're in desperate need for a striker, then it's not going to be him. Miovski is another one mentioned. I think when I read the reports from linked with Celtic, Aberdeen were looking for a record fee, 4.5 million or something like that. Yeah, not a chance. And by the way, just saying this, Celtic won't pay that either, right? So he won't be moving. If Aberdeen want that, they're well entitled to ask for any fee, but the two Old Firm teams are not going to pay that for Miovski, so he'll be staying there, or a European club will have to come in and get him. But yeah, I don't think a permanent striker will come in. I think maybe a loan move, and when it comes to a loan move, Craig, it could be anyone, to be honest with you. I mean, Jermaine Defoe originally, I think that kind of came out of nowhere, didn't it? I think there was some rumours the summer before, but then he ended up signing in January. So, I think it's only going to be a loan move for Rangers. I don't think they'll have the funds really to move around in January, to be honest with you, unless they can maybe move on a Rid van Yilmaz or something like that to try and free up some fees. But again, you're then going to have to replace him. So, yeah, overall, I can see where you're coming from in terms of maybe we do, I wouldn't say need a striker, but it'd be good to have someone in for competition for Danilo. I can't see it happening in January.
Ian, £3 to £4 million is the number quoted by Ross there. I think I'd pay that for Lawrence Shankland, given the fees we've paid for player. Ross's reaction. Yeah, we paid £4.5 million for Cyril Dessers. You can't say that £3 million for Lawrence Shankland is off the mark when he's proven to score in Scotland. Ian, obviously me and Ross are on opposite sides of this debate. So where are you standing on this one?
I think Shankland would be good as a squad player, but I'm not happy with spending 3-4 million on the guy. For what it's worth, I think, as Ross touched on the Miovski one, I think he will go to Celtic, and I think it will be about 4 million because they're losing 2 strikers for this Asian Cup, probably. They're going to have no one. So Aberdeen will know that and kind of say it's 4 million or nothing. And I don't see Celtic buying something like, you never know, someone could come from elsewhere, but it'd be quite a smart sign, I think, that kind of guy for either Rangers or Celtic. I prefer Miovski to Shankland, to be honest. I think he's that better finisher that we're looking for. I think he's younger, so better sell on and stuff like that. But again, we're not going to spend that kind of money. I am going to throw two names out of absolutely nowhere here.
Are we going to know who they are? Are we going to know who they are?
These are straight out of Football Manager. I can't wait for this.
No. So, Danny Ings is one of them because he's not playing down south. He's a proven goal scorer. He is a bit older. I know he's in his 30s now, but he would comfortably get 10, 15 plus goals a season for us if he just sat up front. So, that's quite reasonable. The second one.
Where is he now? Is it Brentford or Burnley or something like that?
West Ham
is still, West Ham warming that bench. He'll want a kind of last hurrah. It could work. But the more exciting one is Amad Diallo. Got to let that sink in for a second. Obviously, my English team is Sunderland, and he was incredible last year. Like, not the player he was at Ibrox. He was incredible.
In League One, though.
He was incredible. So he's had an injury this season.
You can't say that. Like Sam Cosgrove went to. Sam Cosgrove.
No, it was a championship, wasn't it? Was it not a championship?
Sunderland last year. No, they've just been promoted.
No, last year was a championship.
No, last year was a championship. Yeah. It was a championship.
Yeah.
But he's been out this season injured, so he's just coming back. He's still at Man U at this point. He would solve our sort of right-sided forward concept we've got going on. I know he's been up here and didn't do well, but I feel like he was coming into a game as he then gets shipped out. And it's one of these guys that he's got so much potential, he's got so much talent. I know the comments will say, this is fine. I will fight this corner. It's the 5-3-2 thing over again. I'll fight it. We need someone with a bit of star quality who's got ability and would be relatively cheap loan-wise, I think. I don't see us having to pay a lot of money. Whereas, as we're saying, I don't think we're going to have a lot of money to spend unless we manage to sell like a Yilmaz, and as Ross says, we're going to need to replace that anyway. So just a couple of names. I mean, if they come off and they then succeed, I will refer back to this exact point here. But there's a lot of options out there, is what I'm saying. There's a lot of loan possibilities that I think we'll try and lean on a little bit.
I could get on board with Danny Ings. I'd probably get on board with that one. Absolutely not with Amad Diallo. And if Oliver McBurney it makes any way towards Rangers, I will be handing back my season ticket. So I think we're okay on that front. But yeah, some interesting names thrown in there. RFC 72 says Ibrahim Osman from North Shoreland. I can't say I know of anything about. That
screams Football Manager.
It does scream Football. That's right. You were going down, Ian. But yeah, there's going to be plenty of names that are thrown in there. But we do, I think, need a proven striker, and if we can get one on loan, that would be okay for me, just to get us through to the end of the season, because we just need. I think if we want to be, we can be in a real title race here, but we need to want to be in that title race, and it could be the difference between if getting a striker and not getting a striker as to whether we're in that one. So it's up to us. I'd hope to see one. Right. From I guess the top end of the park and some positives to the middle of the park and some not so positives, with Tom Lawrence going off injured after 16 minutes last night. Ross, no one around him really, just looked like a twinge in his calf. It's really frustrating. I've just been absolutely distracted by James Glasgow, who says, "What about Doak from Liverpool?" I'm not even going to dignify that with a response. A very good player, but I'm not sure he's coming to our side of the city anytime soon. Tom Lawrence going off injured. Ross, tweak to the calf. He looked gutted. We were all gutted that it happened. How do we get past this? Philippe Clement is continuously frustrated at the amount of injuries we have. I don't know if it's a workload thing, like a training load thing, or if it's we've just bought players who are generally injury prone, and that's why we can get a Tom Lawrence rather than him going to someone top end of the Championship, bottom end of the Premier League kind of thing. Not entirely sure, but we seem to have a lot of players that go out injured, and they're not all people like Borna Barisic who are just scared of big games. What's going on? How do you feel about Tom Lawrence? Hopefully it's only a week or two, but it's a shame to see him out injured again, isn't it?
Yeah, first of all, what I'd say, I was just gutted for him last night, to be honest with you, because you could see it in his face. He was obviously gutted himself that, you know, it looked like he'd aggravated whatever the problem was before. You could see him speaking to the medical staff. You could basically see him saying, I felt it go. So I think he'll be out for quite a while. Probably when he was out there, maybe 4 to 6 weeks again to try and work on that. Interestingly enough, Tom Lawrence was not injury prone before he came to Rangers. I listened to a lot of Derby fans speak about him when he was going to make the moves to us, and they were basically saying, you know, you can depend on him and what a good player he was. So I think for us, that's difficult to take, because over the years we have signed a lot of players that have been injury prone, and we've taken a risk on them, and we think, well, there's a good player in there, we can get them on the cheap, and we can, you know, hopefully we can fix their injury issues, and we've not been able to do so. So yeah, I'm just gutted for him. Overall, in terms of the problem, I don't know. Ultimately, I'm not. None of us are involved in sports science or head of performance. I know we've just brought in Tom Taylor there, so hopefully he's going to have a good look at this. Clearly, we're not doing something right, and Philippe Clement has been very vocal on this. It's probably the one thing I felt sometimes he's probably saying more than I would expect, because Philippe Clement in press conferences will not give away anything he doesn't want to. He's very good, actually. He's probably the best I've seen at Rangers. I mean, Gerrard was quite good to the media, but he's certainly above Giovanni Van Bronckhorst and Michael Beale in terms of dealing with the media. So he doesn't say anything he doesn't want out there. And he's been very vocal on this injury problem, and very vocal in saying that I've never dealt with a situation like this where so many players are out. But as fans, we're used to this. This is what we've lived through for the last 2 or 3 seasons. Just players dropping out, not having anyone available. So clearly there's something wrong in the background of the club. I'm hoping the appointments last week on Friday are going to address that, especially Tom Taylor, like I mentioned before. But overall, Craig, to be honest, I know when players get injured for Rangers, like Kemar Roofe, when he gets injured, right, the whole fan base is just completely frustrated, right? They're just angry. It's usually with Kemar Roofe, and sometimes I'm like, it's not, maybe it is his fault, maybe it's not. I don't know, it's up for debate. But for Tom Lawrence, I was just gutted for him. There wasn't really any anger. You could see it in his face, and he is a player that when he was available, he wants to play, and I like that. Maybe in hindsight, and I think Philippe Clement might look at this himself, should he have played 2 games back to back? You know, with his current injury load, I'm not sure. I'm not saying the decision was wrong, right? Because when I looked at the team last night, it made sense. I think I wanted Tom Lawrence instead of Cifuentes, and I think it just comes down to the options the manager had. I think if he had another option in there, like a Jack or a Raskin, Tom Lawrence wouldn't have played last night. He would have saved him. So I think, again, it just comes down to when you're down to the bare bones, the load of the players that are available goes up, and there's more risk of injury. So the quicker we can get more bodies back, especially this winter break's going to be big again. We say that every year, but hopefully we can use that to get a lot of bodies back and take the load off everyone, and then we're going to have a fully fit squad going into the end of the season.
Yeah, Ian, it's a problem that's been around for a while. Like Ross says, we're actually used to it as Rangers fans, as weird as it sounds. It's no longer used as a factor for Rangers in the media. You see other clubs, you see Celtic get like 3 injuries and they're in an injury crisis. Meanwhile, we have about 10 and there's no mention of it whatsoever. So you see stuff like that happen, but it seems to happen all too often to us. How much of a hindrance is that to us and our performance? I guess there's situations where we've had to play certain players in certain positions. We had Ben Davies playing left back, for example, at times this season. We've had to go. What was the weird midfield a couple of weeks ago? It was Lundstrom, Cifuentes, and someone else in midfield.
With Dujon Sterling at left back last night as well.
Yeah, we're forcing players into positions that they're not used to just to fill gaps. Effectively, where do you stand on the injury front and how impactful that is, and what did you make of Tom Lawrence last night?
Yeah, I'm so confused by it. I mean, you see little things coming out now about how like every player was on the same training program and the same like rest and recovery mode, and you've got guys who are like in their 30s past their prime, plus guys who are like 20 years old on the same training program. Like, it's just like common sense should dictate that's a madness. And then there was the thing a few weeks ago or months ago about the whole cold ice chamber thing that we don't use. Just like, why have we got these top of the range expert facilities, expert individuals in roles, and yet we can't just deal with this kind of situation. I mean, we've got a massive squad, so there is a bit of like, it's not luck because we've built that squad, but there's a good side of it in that we've got a lot of cover and a lot of positions. But at this point, I'm a bit more concerned that, I mean, Jack's out just now. I mean, we've not been given a time scale, as far as I can tell. I don't know if he's going to be fit for the final kind of thing. Raskin has gone very quiet. I don't know where he is just now. You then look at Lawrence. As Ross says, you're thinking about a month out at least, you would guess. And then you're just down to sort of Lundstrom and Cifuentes. I mean, beyond that, who else is going to come in and play central midfield right now? So if one of they two get an injury, then what? I mean, there's proper square peg and round holes going on already, let alone this could get worse. I think it's something that you'd hope in time, like the new doctors came back, the new personnel are in place, that this will be lesser and lesser as time goes on. But surely our priority for signing players going forward has got to be, are they reliable? Do they have an injury history? If not, doesn't matter what they could become or what they could come back to, we patch it. We can't carry on this way. My worry is now, obviously, we spoke about a lot. There was so many games in a certain period of time. Like, this is going to carry on. Like, well, weekend, midweek for the next month or so anyway, at least. And if we get a couple more injuries on top of what we've got just now, we are proper going to start struggling. And you're going to be just literally just throwing players on the pitch. I think Newcastle is a good example right now because they've got like a first 11 and they just play that first 11. And if they get another couple of injuries, same idea. But I can't really think of any other club that has this sort of scenario going on for as long as we've had it on, for sure. But I guess the good side of it is that Cifuentes came in last night and was all right. At the time, I was panicking when he came on.
Is that a good thing that he's all right? He's
the lowest standards.
All right.
Yeah. I've said in the chat quite a lot, I'm not a huge fan of his so far. I mean, I know I said at the start we need to judge players after they've been here a while with regarding Sima, but I don't know if it was the way Beale spoke about Cifuentes so much that you're so ready for this powerhouse, box to box, assist creating, goal scoring player coming in, and he's just been okay so far. So maybe this is the little run he's going to get now that he needs to proper start his Rangers career. You know, there's going to be opportunities for him that could even be for Bailey Rice. Again, he's kind of dropped off the face of the earth the last few weeks. I don't know where he's gone. I've always been a Leon King fan, but again, he's nowhere really to be seen. So it might come down to these guys have to now step up and be involved in the first team, which you look at McCausland, it could be a good thing. But yeah, it's a bit of a worry where we are right now.
I'm not taking the Leon King bait. I saw Ross look at me when Leon King's name came up. I'm not taking that bait. We'll move swiftly on past that one. Iain mentioned, Ross, that we're effectively midweek weekend all the way through to the end of December and the start of the winter break. Huge week next week, obviously away to Real Betis, and then back on the Sunday for the League Cup final. But before that, we've got Dundee on Saturday. How important is a convincing win on Saturday at home to take us in to next week, or is it just a case of actually we've won 2 out of 2 so far this month, we just need to keep racking up the wins, and no matter how we do it, we just need to keep putting 3 points on the board?
Yeah, I think the latter for this game against Dundee. I expect quite a bit of rotation in this game. I think Philippe Clement will try and use his squad a wee bit here and try and take the load off. Unfortunately, because of that result against Aris Limassol last week, we need to go to Real Betis now and go for it, really. So I think he'll want his squad fit and firing for that game, and then hopefully, because he's given a few players, you know, he's rotated them out for the weekend before, they're firing for the Sunday against Aberdeen in the cup final. So I think for this one, for me personally, I think it's just going to be, you know, you're wanting one of those, probably a very similar performance to St Mirren, actually. Very controlled from Rangers, and actually probably goes down for Philippe Clement as a dominant performance because St Mirren really didn't offer anything. And I think we said this on the match reaction. I've watched St Mirren quite a few times now under Stephen Robinson. They're a good team. Like, genuinely, they are a good team for this level. So the fact that Rangers were so comfortable that day is probably something that Philippe Clement will want again. He'll just want to see the game through, of course, try and get some positive performance out of it. And maybe see some of the guys that have been on the fringes a wee bit lately come in and make an impact. Guys like Rabbi Matondo, maybe a Dessers again, maybe a Lammers. Maybe these guys will have to come in and they'll need to deliver on this game against Dundee. But yeah, I think the this will just be get through this one, and then it's a big week.
You can't build up the expectation for Saturday and then go, you might see a Lammers and a Dessers. You can't. That's just not.
Got to use the squad.
Got
to use the squad. That's what we've got.
Ian, I feel like you're in the same boat as me with that one. But where do you stand on that rotation perspective for Saturday against Dundee?
I don't want to say it, but I think it will be Dessers and Lammers, and it's just going to drain the life out of me seeing that lineup. I mean, there's probably two options to go that way and sort of start the fringe players and see if we can just scrape by, or else start the first team and just take as many off after like an hour as possible. Like give Tav, Cantwell, Danilo a rest kind of after you've hopefully won the game by then, but that obviously comes with its own risks. I guess there'll be a few that aren't in the Europa squad who will play, so like you'd expect Ridvan to start, expect Balogun to start. I don't know. I've not seen Dundee in a while. I know they were doing quite well at home, especially, but you would hope we could rotate quite a lot and win that game, and then, as Ross kind of touched on, play the same, what I'd class as like our strongest 11, basically last night's team, on Thursday and then Sunday again. So it's a bit of risk, but yeah, I would sadly start the fringe players on Saturday and just pray to God that they do okay and can get us over the line for that one.
See, I would take the opposite tactic. I'd start with the first team, hopefully go 2-0 up fairly early doors and start rotating then. I'm always a bit wary when you set out your stall with 4, 5, 6 players who would normally be on the bench, and then it's hard to, because it's rare that a manager will make 3 changes at half time. Never, if it's going wrong, even you wait to 60 minutes and then you're limited time wise. So I'm all in for starting the strongest team and then taking them off as quickly as we can, even if that is half time, if you're 2-0 up or whatever. So maybe a bit of a different tactic from me there, but I win the game first and then start resting players is always my kind of attitude to that one. Right, I think we'll round it off there for tonight's podcast. Kind of looked at some of the bigger points from the game at Tyncastle, and then just a tiny bit ahead to Dundee, although we're all, I think, expecting might be pushing it. We're all hoping for 3 points. Ibrox against Dundee. Thank you very much to Ross and Ian for joining us. Thank you very much to you all for listening. In terms of what's coming up, Kyle and Tommy will be live from Ibrox straight after Rangers play against Dundee on Saturday, and then we'll be live on Sunday night for our regular Sunday night podcast at 8:30 p.m. If you enjoyed this content, this video, or if you enjoyed any of the others, please do drop a like on the video. It does help us immensely. Also, remember to subscribe to the TII YouTube channel, and you'll get a notification, or will appear in your subscriptions list every single time we go live or upload a video. Thank you very much for listening, and until next time, goodbye.